I'm Malcolm Van Delst, and this is an excerpt from the Low Self-Esteem Reading Room, aka Loser, an experimental illustrated novella about a man losing his sanity. Last week, we learned that all the readers at the Low Self-Esteem Reading Night were manifestations of Kyle, the MC, who in turn was a manifestation of the author. Then reader Kara began a sci-fi story about an alien trying to set up pathways into consciousness using human drug addicts. Note, I'm going to reread the beginning number 3 to keep the stories together. Beginning number 3. Kyle comes back up. Thank you, Kara. Let's have a big round of applause for Kara Lewis. Audience cheers. The next reader is a woman who is really Kyle, who is really the author. She looks about 40, though it's hard to say. Definitely older than Kyle or Kara, but she could be 30, she could be 50. Her hair is straight, black, and bobbed. She wears thick black glasses over startling emerald eyes. Hello, she says. I'm reading from my diaries, which I've called Alien Anis Nin. The colors of May Logborin. Pale pink. What I don't understand is sharing. I read over and over again that the key to success is sharing. What comes around goes around. What you give will come back to you 100-fold. How exactly does this work? Perhaps it only works within one's peer group, because I'm pretty sure that women aren't rewarded 100-fold for giving to their children and husbands, nor that the slaves our species so enjoys using are rewarded, though that's another, albeit overlapping story. What is giving and generosity? When does generosity become letting someone use you or being used? Because you've been trained from birth that the only thing you have to give is manual labor or children. You have to have something to give if you're going to be generous. The word generous itself comes from the Latin word generosus, which means of noble birth. If all you have is your body, and that needs to be preserved for your owner or husband, what can you give? How can a woman who only has her body be generous if it means destroying the only thing of value she has? Unless, what if there's a whole set of stories we never hear? Loose women becoming wives, mistresses, and courtesans to rich men, men they would never meet in their respectable lives, or loose women becoming madams, secretaries, or writers. Loose women using the circumstances life gave them and male privilege. How would society change if the successful mistresses, madams, and courtesans stories were as prevalent as the cowboys and venture capitalists? Successful courtesans and madams exist, no doubt. I'd bet that because so much of their success involves staying in the shadows, their stories remain there too, which is a great argument for a female-only language or communication channel. The usual story is that a woman who has nothing to give but her body gets used and thrown out if she gives freely, or that she keeps this wondrous thing pure until a man chooses her, and she gives it to him in return for eternal support. Well, the body, along with the childbirthing, childcare, and manual labor it can and will perform. Sure, she can be a ministering angel and help the needy, old, and infirm. She can pray and sing gospel. She can give her time and energy, but only if somewhere along the line it is considered hers to give. If she's treated as and considered a possession, a thing to be used to get chores done and increase the family value via up-marrying when the time comes, it's impossible for her to be anything, let alone generous. Everything she is someone else's. The marriage contract is not giving, it's a trade. The woman gives her sexually untouched body to one man. In return, he gives her a place to live, food to eat, and clothes to wear. Until 1870, it was legal for a man to beat his wife and children in the U.S. It is still legal in many countries. A woman who has no education or skills beyond caring for children in a home, who has been treated like a possession her whole life, has very little to give, objectively speaking. She can give her whole heart and soul, all of it, but she won't get it back unless she's smart enough to give judiciously. Sharing, for a woman, becomes as much judging the recipient or recipients of her gifts as it is generosity. Black. I'm at the bottom of a well, at the exact spot on the planet that has the longest nights in the exact middle of the longest night of the year. I'm underwater. Deep, deep, deep underwater. The only thing that saves me from the hypothermia is the injections. It takes less than a drop to keep me resistant for about 9 months. I have enough to last me the rest of my life, times 3. We are taught to carry 3 times what we need, always, to allow us to share if we meet someone who has lost theirs. baby flesh. The baby floated beside me. I gave her some of my 3-time lifespan shots. She was barely a month old. Her eyes hadn't even settled on a color yet. She wasn't my baby, though I had borne her. Her father was a composite. The sperm had been assembled from a selection of genes, part random, part deliberate, culled from men of various ages, all Caucasian, except for one exceedingly tall, fast basketball player. Every man who had contributed to the pool was exceptional. High IQ, physical beauty, physical strength, courage. She had several martyrs in her genes and several presidents. From across the board of human achievement, she had gene contributions. Several of her gene fathers were fathers of remarkable women. Before the directionless winds, we considered this the highest achievement. And there was the random gene. No one knew who or what it was, or how or if it would manifest. The egg came from my sister. She was a renowned scientist. The program by which her daughter came to be was hers. She worked in genetics for a corpo government-funded organization that on paper researched autism. She was beautiful as well, my sister, at least before those winds. Colorless. The air is congealing. We call this the still wind. The air gets heavy, falls. There is another kind of air mutation that involves portals opening, then killing and maiming people and animals and destroying or damaging buildings and machines. We live in fear of one of these portals opening on a dam or a nuclear reactor. The portals suck whatever is around them into, well, no one knows where the stuff goes. The portals are accompanied by the sound of wind, slight if the portals are small and not too numerous, louder and more gale-like if the portals are larger or numerous. One pinprick-sized portal can kill a person. The world, since the appearance of these still winds, is more and more riddled with their markings, like bullet holes, but more varied in size from pinprick to beach ball. Sometimes 2 holes open up in the exact same spot, vacuuming in different directions. You see flashes of color, clothing, skin, metal. As stuff moves from the weaker portal to the stronger. Brilliant red. The portals maimed my sister. One opened where her nose was, ripping a big hole in her face, exposing her bones. When it happened, she was alone at the back of her property, behind her children's treehouse. I was visiting. Her cat, Blackie, came to the back door. Meow, meow, meow. What's the matter, Blackie? I opened the door, but he wouldn't come in. He started padding back towards the treehouse, looking back at me. Meow. I crouched and extended my hand, but still he wouldn't come, so I grabbed my shoes and followed. Kaylin! Kaylin! Call 911! Call 911! I screamed. Helen's nose and part of her mouth left side was gone. Her bones and jaw were all jagged and pulverized. Teeth were missing. I felt for a pulse, thank God. The doctors had to rebuild the front of her top jaw and her nose with bones they grew from her DNA. They didn't align things right, though. And a replacement skin, also grown from DNA, is slightly different than the rest of her face. It's like the blood doesn't flow properly to this new skin or something. Lastly, her stitches have never quite disappeared. She looks like a mangled teddy bear. To be continued.